Okay, so this is 2.4c in college algebra, so I just went ahead and copied and pasted the information on here that we are working on, and let's see if we can graph this. Vertex is at -5, -2. We have an axis of symmetry at -5. We have a minimum point, so that means it's going to go like that, well, through that point right there. Alright, and we need to find some more points. We can graph this. So let's do an X and a Y, and we are going to find some numbers to put in there for X and kick us out a Y. So let's put in a -2, so that's going to give us a -2 plus 5, the quantity squared, minus 2. So this is 3, 7. Okay, so we get a point, -2, 7. Let's do that in red, -2, 7. Alright, so notice where this is compared to this line here. We know that it's going to we're going to have another point reflected right over there. So there's a second point right there. So now we've kind of have an idea of how narrow that graph is. And there we go. That's what we need to do. Alright, let's look at example number 2. And this is going to do something a little bit trickier, not too terrible, but enough to give you kind of an idea of some other things going on. We have g of x, and that equals x squared divided by 2 minus 4x plus 8. Okay, so one of the things we're going to do is we're going to rewrite that part of it right there and write it as g of x equals 1/2. Okay, so that's better. 1/2 is the number in front of the x, and that makes it look a little bit better anyway. And let's go ahead and do the whole completing of the square. But we don't want a number right there, because remember, the formula looks like a times like that. Okay? There's no number right there in front of the x. There's an a out here. Okay? It's pulled out. So what we're going to have to do is get rid of that number that's right there. So what we're going to do is we're going to factor out a 1/2. Okay, and we just wanted that 1/2 away from this because that is what's in the parenthesis. We don't care about this one here. So we factored a 1/2. So if we put that back in there, 1/2 times 8 is going to give me 4, 1/2 of 8. So when you pull out a fraction, you're going to have to double that number because you're taking out the 1/2. All right, so now let's get a pen here. And this becomes x squared minus 8x, half of 8 is 4 squared, plus 16, and then minus 16 plus 8. So we took the 16 away. So we added it and took it away. But before we get too excited here, did we add 16? We added half of 16 because this 1/2 is being distributed amongst all of this. When we put this back, it's 1/2 x squared minus 4x, and then we added a 16 here, but half of 16 is 8, so we aren't going to subtract a 16. No, no, no. We're going to subtract an 8. Okay, so what we end up with and then nothing here because that cancels out. All right, so let's go ahead and do our completing the square. X minus square root of 16 is 4 squared plus 0 because that went away. Okay, but I need that 0 there just to help me as I graph this thing. All right, so let's move this stuff out of the way here. So there's our equation that we want. And we know that our vertex is 4, 0. Okay, so it's the number here. I know my axis of symmetry is a 4, and I have a minimum because the number right here is positive. And because it's 1/2, it's going to be a little bit wider. Alright, so let's bring this out. And my vertex is 4, 0. It's right on the x-axis. My axis of symmetry is 4. And because it's a minimum, I know it's going to be that shape there, but I don't really care right now. And let's put in an x and a y, and we're going to find a point here. So let's go ahead and use 0 for x. So that's 1/2 times 0 minus 4, the quantity squared, plus 0. 1/2 of 16. So this is going to be an 8. So that second point is going to be at 8. Alright, and I know that because this is 1, 2, 3, 4 over this way, we have another point over here. So it just kind of gives me my width is all that does. And there we go. We're done. Alright, example 3. Okay, here we go. There's a number here, so we have to factor it out of these first two terms. And you just kind of learn as you go. Okay. And then we get our third term back. 1/2 of 5 is 5/2 squared is 25 over 4. And then we've got minus 23 over 2. But since we added 25 over 4 times negative 2, we have to do that same thing over here. So negative 2 times 25 is negative 2 times 25 is negative 50. So we have to subtract negative 50 over 4, or basically add 50 over 4, two negatives. So that gives me negative 2x squared minus 5x plus. And this is going to be 46 over 4, common denominators, so it's going to be plus 4 over 4, which is 1. Alright, so let's keep going here. Negative 2 stays there. X minus square root of that squared plus 1. Okay, so there's my equation. Let's get everything out of the way here. And then we can graph this guy. Alright, so my vertex is 5/2 1. Okay, it's positive because that does not include itself with it. So the vertex is 5/2 1. Axis of symmetry is 5/2, and we have a maximum value. And that maximum value is 1. So let's go ahead and graph this. 2.5, 1. So there's my vertex. My axis of symmetry goes right through the middle there. And then I'm going to have to use an x and a y to come up with another point here. So I like using 0 if I can. So negative 2 times 0 minus 5/2 quantity squared plus 1 gives me negative 2 times 25 over 4. And negative 2 times, so that's negative 50 over 4 plus 4 over 4 gives me negative 46 over 4, which is negative 23 over 2, which is 11 1/2. So sorry about that, but that's what we came up with. So 0, 11, negative 11 and a half. So it's down here somewhere, isn't it? So down here somewhere. So that means I'm going to be over here. So I've got a graph that kind of looks like that. And we will get into shortly how to find a point on this y-axis a lot faster than what we're doing here by plugging stuff in. But that's just where we're at right now. All right, so let's jump to the bottom of page 220, where it says in many situations we want to find the coordinates of the vertex directly from the equation f of x equals ax squared plus bx plus c. Okay, you see what it's saying? We want to find the vertex just from looking at that instead of having to put it in that other form. Okay, so you ready for some secrets here? The x-coordinate, if you just look at that equation there, the x-coordinate of the vertex will be negative b over 2a. The y-coordinate of the vertex will be the function of the x-coordinate. And I'll show you what that means here in just a second. Okay, so I would work at remembering this, because this negative b over 2a will be coming very, very handy as we move along here. So let's go look at an example here. If we have f of x equals that doesn't look very clear, does it? That should be a minus 47. All right, so if we want to find out what the vertex is, to find the x-coordinate of the vertex, we take negative b over 2a. Negative, what is b? B is a 14. And what is the a? 1. Negative 1, actually. So that is going to be 7. So the first point is 7. Yay, that wasn't too bad to find. All right, then we take whatever we found x to be, and we plug that in. Okay, that's what this f means. It means whatever x is, you take it and plug it into the original problem. And when you plug that all in, you end up getting 2. So there's my vertex. And that not only gives me my vertex, it also gives me my axis of symmetry, and it also gives me my max or my minimum point. Okay, so I find all the information I need that I did in the last problems by completing the square and all that other junk just by using this formula right there. And isn't that just like me, to make you learn the hard way and then go ahead and give you an easier way? All right, well, one of the things we're going to look at right now is the C part of example 4. It said find the range. Okay, the range means what are my possibilities for my y. Okay, so let's put this on here and let's look at the range. We found out that the vertex was at 7, 2, and we also know that it opens down. Okay, the range means which part of which y does this, in which numbers for y does this involve? Well, it starts here and uses all the y values that go down. It doesn't use any y values up here. So my range ends up being from negative infinity, clear down here, all the way up to positive 2. Does it include 2 right here? Yes, it does. So it's a square right there. So that's the range. I know my domain left to right includes all numbers, because this will go down forever and ever, so eventually it will go this way forever. And we will continue on the next video.